Without a doubt, the 5th gen Honda Civic is one of those icons that pretty much is a staple trademark of Honda Civics. I think this is the Honda that people remember. And if it's not this, it's the 6th gen. But it's thanks to this 5th gen that we have here that we all know what a Honda Civic is, whether it's boosted, stock, or even riced. Ever since it was introduced in the Fast and the Furious, has exploded even so far more in the modification world and in the car tuning world. It's thanks to these little cars that pretty much caused what we have today in the car culture. The Honda hate, the Honda love, whether you love it or hate it, but it's here. And it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Sadly, you're not going to see many clean versions of this car, and that's just normal. A lot of people just use it, abuse it, and throw it away when it's unfortunate, because these cars are really reliable. I mean, heck, I was able to rebuild the engine, or just reseal it really, and be able to install it. I've never done an engine removal or install in my life. I mean, it's just astounding how this little car is so simple. A lot of cars nowadays are a little bit overcomplicated, and that's thanks to the EPA or whatever government regulations, and just thanks to us in general. We want more. We want the best of the best, the fuel economical. We just want everything more and more. And they just have to comply, and they try to make it, but they just don't work out. And it's true what they say. They don't really make them like they used to anymore. This Honda Civic is an example, a testimony to time, to abuse, saying, I'm here. Look, this car isn't the prettiest. It's not the best looking, of course. I mean, the paint is fading. There's some little rust here, but it's still here. That's the point I'm trying to make. And a lot of enthusiasts automatically would recognize a 5th and a 6th gen Honda Civic. They just know whether it's in the right hands or in the wrong hands, but this car will bring nostalgia to whoever sees it. They will remember the good old days when they had a little car, or their first car, or their 10th car, but they'll always remember good old reliable Honda Civic. And well, this is one of them. When it comes to the 5th gen Honda Civic, I really like the interior. It just really lines up well. I don't know. It's really 90s. I just like it. The way how it's form and shape, it's really good. And it's not that cheaply made. We still have some parts where we still have some nice foam here on the door panels, here on the dash, everywhere around here. And don't get me wrong, you'll still see some plastic parts like here, especially here when it comes to the cup holders and the sensor, but it still works. It's fine. I mean, it just all comes down to how you take care of it. The dash up here, there's a part where it's cracked. I didn't realize it was broken. But yeah, it's broken there, but it's not terrible. Everything in here, the durability it's still functioning well. The seats in here, as you can imagine, there are cloth. There aren't any leather, but they are decently comfortable. It still hugs you really well on the sides, especially being an old car how this is. It is mechanical. Actually, in fact, it's all mechanical. There's no power seats, so it's mechanical. The door locks are mechanical. The window is mechanical. The transmission is mechanical. Even the steering wheel. There's no power steering in this car. It's all mechanical. There's no sunroof, nothing. This is the DX model. So everything else is just very plain and simple. Everything just works. There's nothing in here that could break, and well, it still is working after all these years. Now, the one bad thing is that it's not very practical. What do I mean? You don't have a lot of storage to put things in. When it's an everyday daily driver, you like having a little bit of storage room for whatever. I personally like to have some place to put my phone, but it doesn't matter as long as there's little storage, but this doesn't have that. In here in the center, there's nothing. I can't really put my phone anywhere. And on the side of the doors, you really don't have any space, no cup holders, no nothing. The only thing that we do have is our glove box, which is mediocre. It's only good enough to put like your registration, your manuals, and small stuff like that. But luckily, we do have 2 more little tiny space containers right under the center and infotainment center. Like right here where you would have your cigarette smokes, or pretty much your ashtray is what it is. You have that little space and then a little tiny door for your coins or whatever small little things you want to put in there, which isn't much. That's it. Oh, and the cup holder, well, this is the time where Honda and most of the Japanese market cars didn't really know how to make a cup holder for us big Americans, because there's not, it's just this flimsy little tiny thing, rings that are supposed to hold your drink, but it doesn't work, it's broken. The plastic piece just gave up. It's just very flimsy. I recommend you not using it. Just bring water bottles because it's gonna break. When it comes to the space back here, like I said, this is a compact car. There isn't much room for adults, especially if you're 6 foot tall. I'm 5'4" and I'm almost here touching the roof. But if you're gonna need to put 2 adults in here, just 2, no 3, unless the person is very small and they can squish right in. But I don't think 3 adults could fit back here. It's really challenging, actually. There's no room for leg. There's barely any room. So for kids, it's perfect. If you're gonna have, even teenagers can fit back here. Normally you won't have a lot of passengers back here, but if you do need to have people come in here, well, you have the room, you have the space. But there isn't more that I can talk to you about in here besides the design, because really, there's nothing else back in here. There's no cup holders, no storage, except for this little tiny storage that's back here in the passenger seats, which, I mean, you can put like a sheet of paper or any other small thing, but you really can't put much in here. And the little ashtray that you have in here, it's a puny little tiny thing, but it's cool. But there is no cup holders, no handles, no nothing really. You're just, the only thing holding you back here is yourself and, well, the seat belts. There's nothing else back here. There's no center console drop down or an armrest, none of that. It's just very simple. The seats are comfortable. They're very, well, clothy, the same thing, you know. They're very firm and stiff because no one usually sits back here anyway. So these things, I don't think they've ever been broken in much. Now, looking back here, you have a lot of space. You have a lot of room to put things in here, despite being a compact car. There's plenty of space back here to put things like water bottles and stuff like that. You can probably fit 4 water bottle packs if you know how to fit them in there nicely. And, well, you can even lower the rear seats if you need to. If you need to stick any more containers or things in there, you have that option. You're able to put things in there as well. Underneath the carpet, as you can imagine, is the spare tire. But this is a normal thing that happens if yours still has it. This little cardboard piece, they tend to rip every time because people tend to lift them while there's things there. And, well, it causes it to bend and it rips. And, well, this is what happens, the aftermath. At least I have the piece. So what a person did, the previous owner put a piece of wood or a plywood just to help keep the weight on it safe, so that way it doesn't further bend the cardboard. And I think that's a good idea. At the same time, you also have your spare tire and you have your car jack and nice little things like that. Again, most of these have been touched by somebody, by many owners. So if you don't have the spare tire or any of the tools, don't worry, it's normal. But yeah, it's a nice little convenient car in terms of space. It can be practical when needed. Driving this Honda Civic is a blast. I don't know what is it, but Hondas are always fun to drive. Regardless if it's stock, no power, it's fun to drive. Take it to a back roads, take it somewhere where you have good twisties and good everything. It's a joy to drive. You don't really get tired of driving it. This has header modifications. It doesn't have the stock header, so it is a little bit loud, but it does have a muffler where it muffles the drone, because this car had an awful droning sound because it was straight pipe with headers. This car unfortunately has an issue. With the throttle. I don't know if it's the throttle position sensor, a cable, timing, valves. Something is not right where it just jerks. It gets to a certain part of the acceleration where the TPS just doesn't like it when it's at 0.7 at the voltage reading. It just doesn't like it. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't like it, and it jerks. It's very jerky. But when this car works, it works fine. The acceleration is very slow, as you can imagine. This car isn't and wasn't made for speed. This car has the D16 Z6 engine, which is what in the Del Sol and the Honda SI comes with. So this is not very fast, but it doesn't have to be fast to be enjoyable. I will tell you that right now, that speed isn't everything. And yes, we always talked about, you know, turboing or whatever, but in this car being naturally aspirated, it's fun. It's a fun car to drive. It's reliable, dependable, not something you have to worry about too often. So it's not going to be the quickest car, but it's a blast to drive. It's really fun. It never gets tiring. It's always a blast to drive in this car, knowing you have a 5-speed manual, front-wheel drive. I mean, it's pretty much what you would want for an every daily driven car. There is a lot of road noise, a lot of wind noise. Obviously, I have the window down, but it's just gonna be the nature of the car. It's just the way it was made. It's not very concealed. The brakes could be better. But then again, this car does need more maintenance. But it's just a fun driver. It's just a fun daily driver. The good thing about Hondas, they have very great visibility. I can see where I'm going. I can see the rear. I can see everything. Everything around me is great. I can see. The clutch and the transmission is great. It shifts smoothly. It's something about Hondas and their shifts that it's just a pleasure to drive. Body roll with the suspension. There's not a lot of body roll. This is stock suspension. Everything is all stock. It does need a lot of love for it to get it all right. But when it's in stock form, it's great. It's a pleasure to drive. It's dependable. It's reliable. This thing isn't going to leave you. I mean, listen, it's driving with that issue that it's given me, and it's annoying. It's very annoying. I would like to have it fixed, but it's come to my limit that I don't know what I need to do to fix it. Now, the miles per gallon and the fuel economy, I'm gonna put all that information here and how much horsepower this motor makes, because this car normally does not come with a D16 Z6 motor. That's usually in the Honda Civic SIs and the Honda Del Sol. This car usually comes with a D15 motor, but when I purchased this car, it didn't have the D15, and it was swapped with a D16. And when I first purchased it, I thought it came with a D15, but it does not come with a D15. It had, actually, to my surprise, a D16 Z6. Unfortunately, the motor blew. Luckily, I was able to get a donor car and be able to do the swap and all the other stuff myself. But it's unfortunate I still had that little jerkiness, hesitation going on. It's all sound, no go. That's the nature of this car. It's not going anywhere. The common problems that this motor normally faces is either blown head gaskets or sensors or the dizzy. For example, the distributor is something known to go out the next day. Sometimes the distributor or the ignition coil inside of that dizzy just ends up failing. It's just something that commonly happens with these motors. Same thing with the air idle control valve or the map sensor or the temperature or the throttle position sensor. Something usually goes wrong, and it's something minute. But normally these things are bulletproof in a sense. They really don't go out too often, but there's not much that I can really report that this car has, like the issues that it's given it. And that is the 5th generation Honda Civic. This is the 1995 Honda Civic DX with the 5-speed manual transmission and the D16 Z6 motor. You don't see these cars anymore, and if you do, they're all beat, all clapped, and they're asking for an asinine amount of price for one of these. It is just insane how much the market for these have gone up. I mean, I was lucky to buy a whole parts car for $300, and that was a 4-door D16Z6 EX model Honda Civic, and I was lucky to buy it running and driving. It was because of that car I was able to have this project done. Swap out that motor and put it in here. It is the only reason. And those prices is normally how much these would go for anyway. But unfortunately, with these being mistreated the way they are and just not finding many of them anymore in great condition, people are just asking too much for these cars, and it's a shame because these cars, they really don't make them like how they used to anymore.